What's up, gamers? This is Pro from Average Gamers, going back to another episode of Nostalgic Corners. I kind of wasn't expecting to do a part two on it, but when I thought about it, I didn't want the video to be too long, like how I said in the last one. So we're going to continue on with the console wars. This is going to be part two, and we left off right around the big hype between Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis, and that was right when PlayStation started to come into the mix. And for us, that was when we saw major changes in games for PlayStation, because back then it was just PlayStation. It wasn't PS1. We didn't know a PS2, a PS3, or PS4 was going to be coming. So we knew it just by PlayStation. And that was the big change for us. It's the first time games were on discs, not cartridges, so we didn't have to blow in anything. First time we seen a change in gameplay with graphics, different types of games, and this is like when a bunch of games came out on PlayStation. It was a time where a lot of risks were being taken for games because it was coming up with different types of games. It wasn't just platform based games. And some of the most fun games I remember playing on PlayStation was Crash Bandicoot, which I was so happy they made a remake for. Spyro, which everybody loved. I didn't know anybody that did not like Spyro. There were certain levels of Spyro people didn't like, but overall, nearly everybody liked Spyro. For me, racing wise, is when I first came in tune with Test Drive, and I fell in love with that series. When I fell in love with my favorite car today, racing in that game all those years, those are some of the major games that I love playing in it. And Nintendo wasn't gonna hold back on that. They was like, no, we're not just gonna let Sony just come into the market and just take over everything. We've been here. And that's when we saw the Nintendo 64. And the Nintendo 64 blew our mind because, one, we thought they was going to go to this like PlayStation did. No, they still kept with cartridges. But the thing that stood out to us a lot the most was, well, it was actually two things. It was, one, the graphics, because if you ever played Super Mario 64, it was one of the very first times that we could play a game in 3D, and it was completely open. You wasn't just looking at the person from the back, you wasn't looking from the side. You could actually run around in 360 and play him. And it, for a lot of us, it blew our mind. We kind of hoped the games would get like that, but we never thought we would see that as kids. So that blew our mind. The second big thing about the Nintendo 64 was its controller. Its controller was none like any other controller. And if you're looking at it, it was like, how do you work this? And come to find out, certain games require certain ways. So instead of you have to switch out between different type of controllers, they put all of it together. Now, for certain games, it worked out fine. But for others, it was like, because you could change controls around. Now, I didn't get a chance to get the 64 because I got the PlayStation, but I had friends that had the 64. And like I said before, we rotate back and forth. I bring my system over their place, they bring their system over my place, and we just had a ball with it, just having so much fun. I remember playing Star Fox 64. That game really got me into like space battle games, playing games, and it was so much fun. And at that point, the 90s was almost coming to the end, but the console wars was beefing up. So so you can say the console war of the 90s was ending, but the console wars was really starting up because at the end of the 90s, Sega Dreamcast came out. Sega tried to put their foot in the door one more time, and I'm not gonna lie, the games they had for Sega was, in my opinion, a lot of fun. They had a lot of variety. They had different types. They had a game for almost everybody. Like, I was so sad when that system fell through, but they had made so many mistakes beforehand with Sega and with that system that it was going to happen. But I loved it because one thing they did is with the Sega Dreamcast, a lot of their arcade shooter games, they had them on Dreamcast. So you could pick them up and play them if you didn't want to play in the arcade. Because if you play them in the arcade, you spent anywhere from 50 cents to $1 to play. And you lose, you got to put another dollar in or $1.25. So if you was able to find it on Dreamcast, you would play the crap out of it. And it was interesting. And just with those consoles going into the 2000s just made a difference. I mean, by this point, the biggest competitors is PlayStation, Nintendo, and Sega dragging at the end. And out of nowhere, Microsoft comes out with the Xbox. And that changed gaming again. Because now at this point, everybody's trying to come out with games that look better than one another, that play better than one another. So competition was strong. Everybody was trying to have their own flag or their juggernaut. Because at this point, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention it, at this point, PlayStation 2 came out. Like I believe PlayStation 2 came out a little bit before Xbox. And so now the biggest competitors are PlayStation 2 and Xbox. And Nintendo kind of went dark for a while with 64 because like people like 64, but the graphics wasn't nothing compared to the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. And I remember and it still goes on now, the console war between those two systems. And I remember their biggest competitors against one another. Xbox, they had Halo. PlayStation, they had Killzone. Those two went head to head, and both games were great in my opinion. I mean, you can't think of either one of those systems without talking about those games and all the other games that came out. Those systems till this day are still great to play on. And I still play on my Xbox from time to time. I still play on my 360 from time to time. I mean, the footage that you're seeing from right now is from a game on 360 that I played. And I love that I can still play some of my Xbox games on my 360 because they're compatible. And I know I can play them on Xbox One, but sometimes I just feel like playing on my 360. And just the fun between all those games. And like I said, with these games coming out, these systems, everybody's trying to have better graphics, a unique story, a different way of playing it. And the console wars just got bigger and bigger. And out of nowhere, PC gaming got back into play. So now the competitors is PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. So now we got everybody competing against one another. And if you know history, the 360 came out, went against the PS3, and they went head to head. And I'm not gonna lie, I mostly played on Xbox majority of my life with the consoles. I started off on PlayStation, and I love the PlayStation. And one thing I plan on doing is collecting all the consoles, and that's gonna be like one of my hobbies. But I digress. But I love playing the PlayStation. But when it came down to my next console, I had a choice. I had a choice to either get the PS2 or the Xbox. And believe it or not, I weighed my options. I looked at the games that was coming out on PS2. I looked at games that was coming out on Xbox. I was looking at what systems my friends were playing. Everybody was divided here and there, so I couldn't even go down through that. And the deciding factor was I saw a couple of commercials for Halo. I was like, this looks really interesting. So I started looking it up. I started seeing what the game was about. I was like, this really sounds interesting. And I was like, am I going to risk getting a system on one particular game? And what if I don't like the game? And I took the risk and I fell in love with Halo. And I'm not going to say I'm a fanboy of Xbox, but I do enjoy it. I've met a lot of great friends playing on Xbox Live. and I have no regrets. Like to this day, I still play on PlayStation because I have a PS3 and I plan on getting my PS4. And a lot of times, what I do is for the PlayStation, because a lot of my friends play on Xbox now, is I get the PlayStation to get the exclusive games that are on it. Because I mean, just playing on my PS3, I love playing Infamous. I love playing the Killzone series, the Resistance series. Those were excellent series, and I like how they brought another Killzone onto the PS4. And so I kind of hoping they do another Resistance, but timeline wise, I don't know how it would play into it. Because if you play the last Resistance, you know how it played out. I mean, they kind of could continue the story, but we shall see. But this was a fun little trip down memory lane. And it was just fun talking about these consoles and how they changed everything. Like I said, my generation, we saw the changes in games. We saw the changes in hardware going from pixel to side scroller to 3D to real 3D, and now to the point that the characters look like real people. From my generation growing up, that from my point, that is a major change. The generations prior to me that played Atari, they saw it even further than me. But it's so interesting to see how these console wars made that happen, and I'm so happy. So I'm hoping these console wars continue. I hope the games get better. I hope the graphics get better. I hope the stories and the games get better. But I'm gonna leave the video here, and this is gonna be the end of the console wars. So let me know what you guys think. What was your favorite consoles growing up? What games did you guys love playing on the systems? What games did you compete against with friends? Leave it in the comments. Let me know. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. I'm Proto, and I will catch you guys later.